If a belt's too big for one reason or another, we need to make some adjustments. Now the quick, simple, easy adjustment is simply adding more holes, right? If this belt's just a little bit long, we punch another hole so you can get that an inch, maybe 2 inches tighter as you go. But in some cases, there needs to be an extreme adjustment. Maybe somebody has lost a lot of weight, or this is a hand-me-down belt. For one reason or another, if we have to take off 3 or more inches on a belt, I want to show you 2 different ways to do that, depending on how the belt is constructed. So here I have 4 different belts that we're actually working through here. I had one customer that has brought back all 4 belts. They had a big weight loss thing that they have gone through, and they needed to get 3 inches off all these belts. So what I don't want to do is I don't want to just punch holes out here 3 more inches. Although that would make the belt fit and buckle and wear correctly, there's going to be a big long tail at the end of that, and we don't want to do that. So we're going to make adjustments to this belt. That way it fits, it looks right, the tail looks in proportion how it was originally designed for him to wear that belt. So let's jump in and look at 2 different types of construction methods and how we're going to make those adjustments. These first 2 belts that we're looking at are standard one-piece belts. What I mean by that is this whole belt is constructed as one piece, as opposed to the next 2 belts that we have to look at are 3-piece belts. That means there's a center part, which in this one is a gaiter piece, followed by an end on either side. So that is a 3-piece belt. This is another one. This is a center piece here with ends on either side that are actually attached, so that makes that a 3-piece belt. Those are a little bit different because we do want to make sure that we have things proportioned and even. So the same fix that we're getting ready to do on this 1-piece belt doesn't necessarily work for a 3-piece belt, especially in this case where this is a tapered belt here. So we'll talk about that when we get to that one. Starting off with our 2 1-piece belts, so these ones are going to be done exactly the same. Now, like I said, I don't want to just punch holes to add in down here. We want these to still fit the same as they were supposed to with that tail length. So we're going to take our 3 inches off of this side here. Easiest way to do this, I'm just going to measure down my 3 inches from my end here with this being unsnapped. And that's going to come out right here, pretty much in the center of that oblong hole there. This one here is going to be that same way, so I know that's going to get our 3 inches off of that. Now, I'm going to come in with an end punch, and we're just going to cut these down right here. Make sure we get through our stitches and everything. Do the same thing on this one. There we go. Now with these, those snaps obviously aren't going to work anymore for us, so we need to get those cut out of there. The easiest way to get rid of these snaps, I like these kind of end cutters that I have here. This is a find from the hardware store. We're going to get right down in around that snap. And we're almost kind of squishing it together until it can get popped off of that cap. Okay, so it pops the back side of that snap off of there. Now that allows us to get a hold of it from the front. And we can pop that post out of there. There we go. Snaps out of that one. We'll get them out of this one as well. All right, the next thing we're going to look at is, I'm going to do it on the back side of this one because you can see really well here. With my end template that I have, because we're taking what we did have down here, right, our 2 snap holes, that centerpiece, and 2 more snap holes, cutting off of that end, so we're just simply moving this down 3 inches. Now, ideally, if you're looking at an ideal world, if it was to need 4 inches off of this belt, we could just come down and we'd be reusing these 2 snap holes, and those would now fold over and become the back. But 3 inches is a little bit different because we don't quite come all the way to here, right? So instead, what we're going to wind up doing is using that last snap hole that we had here. It's going to become the front corner of that oblong hole in the center here. So we're going to do that on both sides, or both belts here, excuse me. Just use that front corner. Same thing here. I'm going to grab the front corner of this. Now with my template we can look and see the first hole from either side of that oblong hole. It's real easy. We got good leather to go into there. The second one, clear out here, is almost going to wind up hitting just outside in that old oblong hole. So we don't want that. We need to bring that in here. But I got to make sure my holes line up on both sides. So instead of having our normal distance between those 2 holes, it being 1 3/8 inches, we're going to shorten that up a little bit to make sure that I can get a snap to hold on the inside of this one here. So we're going to come out to 1 1/8 inches from that snap hole, and I'm going to put my next snap hole there. So then the same thing in from this one. We want to make sure they line up. So we're going to come in 1 1/8 inches to make sure those line up. Now, down here at this end, is it necessary to leave that last little bit? Because we're going to have this snap hole right out there at that end. So I can trim this off, clean that up a little bit, because we don't really need that out there, right? Come in with that end punch. I'm going to put that punch right at the end of that last oblong hole there that we had. Oh, bounce tools all around. Okay, that cleans that end up. We need to punch our new snap holes. Now, before I go set my snaps in there, I'm going to come and finish this off with a stitch on the end so I can overlap my stitches right here where we start. I'll overlap, then we can stitch around here and overlap a few stitches there. That way we don't have threads fraying out at the end there. So we'll get that stitched up. We'll get this one to the same point, and we'll look at our next step. Now with that stitched, I also want to finish this edge off because even though it's going to look like a repair, right, we have to move our snap holes and stuff, I do want to give that nice finishing touch just to show a little extra quality into the work. Not that it's going to make a difference in the function of this belt, but I just like to do it to make it a little bit better. As far as it looking like a repair and having a hole through the maker's mark and snap holes in here over your tooling, Not a big deal in the long run. They came to me for this being a repair because nobody else is gonna know when they're wearing this. It's gonna fit correctly, and the tail of that belt is gonna cover anything that looks like a repair over here. But for my own well-being, I'm going to finish off the edge on these belts that we just stitched, just to give it a good finish on there when he does inspect and see the work that we've done for him here. So edge that, we take this over, dye that edge, slick it off there, and be ready to go. When you're setting snaps in an adjustment belt like this, sometimes because when we originally made this belt and skived down, we didn't skive up so far down in here. So sometimes those snaps don't want to reach through as much, and you may have trouble setting your snap in there without tearing the whole belt down and skiving that. So one thing that you can do this even by hand, but if you're setting with a setter like this, what I like to do is just take a little scrap of leather, put that behind here where your snap cap is going to go, and without your snap in there, we're going to put this in here, line that up, and squeeze that down there. Now what that does is that sets that little bit of a divot down in there. Now when I put that snap in, we got a lot more of that post that sticks up through there. So now I can put that snap piece in there, and that's going to set really nice. Okay, so again, take a scrap, put that underneath, run that down, push that down. You can simply, with a ball peen hammer, if you're not using a press, hit that hammer down a ways, and you can get that divot put in there. Stick that in, lots of posts sticking out. Now we can get that one set. Sets in there really nice. The other two on that other end typically have plenty of posts sticking through to get those set. So we'll actually adjust over to the other setter here. I'm just going to shift you guys over. There we go. And we'll get these set in here as well. So we'll put that piece in. Okay, now, before I go to just crank this over, we're actually going to go over and get a little water and wet this down before we fold it. So I got a little dish of water here, and as I begin to bend this, I'm just going to add a little bit of water there just to help so I don't break and crack that belt through. I can even throw some on the back side. Oh, the other one's falling down on me. And as that's bending, then I can put those snaps together, and we'll start pressing that down. Again, I don't want to do that just like banking it the first time. I don't want to crank that over on that fold hard, so I don't crack that when I first fold that over. Now that we have that, everything's finished, snaps put in, new end on that. So this belt's going to fit like a charm now, 3 inches shorter than what it was. So we'll do the same thing on the other. 3-piece belts are a different story. So especially these, how they are constructed, these are actually 2 belts this gentleman had. He had sent to me and had me add the 3-piece ends on. So we took other belts, cut them down, created the 3-piece belts out of these 2 centers here. So when I did that, due to how the stitching was and things, we did not run a full new liner on those. So I had actually come in and spliced a new liner on here with that 3-piece end. Same thing if I would be doing the same process even if I had a full line belt. We would just need to redo the whole liner on it. But step 1 on this one is going to be to take the liners off of here. But before I make any adjustments yet, I want to make a mark on these ends because what we're gonna do, I'm not gonna mess with snaps at all. I'm gonna leave those snaps exactly how they are. That whole end is gonna stay the same. What we're gonna do is take off these two 3-piece ends. We're gonna take those off. We're gonna take the centerpiece and actually cut our 3 inches off of that and then put our 3-piece ends back on with a new liner piece behind there, sew and edge that. So we're essentially just shortening the center of this belt as opposed to messing with our ends on there. So the first thing, I'm going to make a mark from the tip of this 3-piece end out here. I'm actually not gonna mark it at 3 inches. I'm gonna come in at 2 7/8. I wanna keep this mark just behind. That way, when I go to glue this end down, I know I can glue and cover that mark up and it'll put me in the right spot. Same thing on this one. We'll come out, mark that 2 7/8, so I know, again, to cover that mark up when I put the tooling back down on that centerpiece. Now, there's the painstaking way of picking each stitch out of here, trying to cut each stitch and do that, or let me show you a little shortcut for getting stitches off of here and ripping something down. I know I'm gonna put a new liner piece on here anyhow, so I can simply grab this scythe, come right over these stitches on the back side, and we'll scythe this down. I tell you what, if this is the only thing you get out of this video, it's gonna save you so much time if you ever have to tear anything down with a liner on it that you're replacing, because you won't have to pick all those stitches. I'm gonna be real careful when I get up in here because I don't want to mess anything else up. Okay, so once we have those scythed off the back side, watch this. I'm going to flip that over. I can pick one of these stitches with my awl. Look at that. It just pulls all that stitch all the way out of here. Easiest way to pick stitches right there. Okay, I think I got all the top ones out of there. All right, stitches are all out. I have my mark for where this is going to go to. Now I can peel in here. Peel that piece off. Peel that back liner off. And now I can look, make my 3-inch adjustment here. We're gonna mark that so we can cut this off here. Now with that cut off, I do want to scythe down a little bit, but I want to make sure when I look, I don't want to scythe anything that's going to show up here. So I want to make sure I stay back from where these points are here. So we're going to keep behind my line there when I scythe this down. I'm going to I'll grab a marble to scythe on. This will make things a little bit nicer. And the reason we're skiving this down is because I don't want that big lip underneath there, right? We want to get that thinned down a bit. Bring that down to a nice feather edge here in the back. Now when that lays on there, there's a nice transition as that comes down here. So this belt's just a skosh thin up here as far as narrow goes, not thin, but narrow. And I want to make sure that I don't miss any of that when we stitch this one down. So we're going to grab a flat face hammer here. And I'm actually going to hit down on this a little bit, and I'm wanting to spread this out some as I'm doing that. Kind of hitting and dragging just a little bit with that hammer. There we go. We're getting pretty good contact on that, filling that in there. All right, now I need to go get some liner leather that we can lay back in here. Slide this up out of the way. I need to make sure that I have plenty of liner to cover that tooled piece. That will look. I can lay this down to where I know I have plenty of liner on this outside edge. We'll come back up here, check that to where that's covering my original mark, so I know this tooling's going back in place where it needs to be. So I have plenty of liner showing everywhere. I can move this piece and make my mark here so I know where this is going to be, and then here's my mark that we're going to cover the tip with, or cover with that tip from right there on that 3-piece. So I'm going to see where that's at. And what I'm looking for now is I'm looking to see where my glue is going to be at. So we'll lay this back in place here. I don't know how well you can see that on the camera. I'm going to grab a actual ink color here. Okay, that was our line that this is going to come to. That shows where that's going to be. There's no sense in me gluing way up in here. That's going to wind up getting trimmed after we get this all sewed together here. So that gives me an idea on where I'm going to be placing glue. See, I tip that pin. So I am going to glue on the outside edge of that liner just to make sure we got plenty of glue in place there. So I have my barge contact cement in here. There we go, now we got it primed. Okay. First thing, I'm going to grab this end. I'm going to put a little bit of glue on here. I'm going to go to the back side and put a little glue as well. Leave that sit so it can tack up. And we'll get our glue spread here and get it put down in place. Now that glue's tacked up, we can lay this in place. I'm going to come back to my mark, lay that main base layer down, and we're going to come back with our 3-piece end, putting that, covering my mark like we planned, making sure we're right on those edges. Now we can tap this down, then we'll take that over to the machine and get this sewed up. All right, once we stitch that, I'll show you how we can trim this liner away so we get a nice clean look on that back side. Now that we're stitched, I can trim off my edges just with whatever knife you like to trim with, right down this edge here. And then I'll show you how we get to the back side of this. So. Trim down that side. I'm going to trim down this side as well. Now on the back side of this, we got to get this trimmed off, but I don't want to do that with my knife in here and risk getting anything. So I'm going to use my edger here. We're going to come right down tight. I'm going to keep my left toe of that edger right on my stitch line, essentially. This is going to trim nice, even, right around that edge. We'll get a nice clean finish on the back side. All right, now our edge can slick down just like if you're normally constructing something. We're gonna sand and dye and slick that. And lastly, don't forget to repunch holes because your liner does not have holes in that. So we're gonna come back and repunch right through our original holes down through that liner. And now we have a 3-piece belt that's shortened up without having to mess with any of our snaps on this end, just simply by moving that 3-piece end down. Now if we didn't care about the looks of it and keeping our 3 pieces even there, but just needed the functional belt, needed to shorten it up, could we have cut this end down just like we did those first 2 belts and reset snap holes? Yes, absolutely, and it would still function and work fine. This second belt, however, would not work like that. Because this is a tapered belt, so it goes from wide here down to narrow, simply cutting and resetting snaps could potentially not work because we'd be possibly getting back too far in here. So that's why we really want to keep those to where we do cut down like we did here, taking this 3-piece off, cutting off of here, re-skiving just like the one before. We're going to relay this one in there with another liner, and then that trims down. So again, like we did on that first one, we're going to end up with a 3-piece belt, those ends being preserved exactly how they were, just simply shortening up that center piece there. So I hope this helps you in any adjustments you may have to do in the future, but be sure to subscribe to the channel to catch on more tips, tricks, and how-to videos.